Welcome to the Isle of Wight County Press. Richard Quigley, you're standing for Island Labour in the Isle of Wight West constituency, which is, of course, new this year. Straight into it then. Islanders, they've many years, they say, overpriced, unreliable ferries have plagued the island for far too long. If you were to be elected, Nick has asked what exactly you would do to improve cross-Solent travel.
It's a question I get asked all the time, and something I've been working on probably for the last 18 months, if not longer. We've got commitment from Keir Starmer's office that we are going to take action, and it is a commitment to action. It's not the end of the story, it's the beginning, so that would be a referral to the Competition and Markets Authority. But the big problem is we've got companies that are owned by private equity firms that, to cut a long story short, load them with debt, and the only way they can survive is keep charging more and more, and then sell them on for a profit. So what we need to do is take them out of that system of being passed on. So if we've got any chance really of cheaper ferry travel and certainly more reliable, we need to look CMA first, and I would push towards regulation, but that's a further journey, and I'm not going to pretend that's going to happen overnight, because one thing I won't do is I won't make promises that I can't keep. But I am committed to solving this issue.
And we noted, you mentioned Sir Keir Starmer's comments about the cross-Solent ferries in particular, and he said that Labour would ask the Competition and Markets Authority whether intervention is needed. That doesn't sound a commitment as such, does it, at the moment?
Well, to understand what that means is actually to get the CMA involved. Nothing's been done since 2009 when it was Andrew Turner. So actually what you do is you start that review, and they then say, oh yes, we do intervene or we don't. But even if they say we don't intervene, we can still look at regulation, because it isn't working for islanders. And the whole point of it is it isn't working for islanders. His comment that is baffled is because nothing's been done. Just look at the number of times ferries is mentioned in Parliament. Cross-Solent ferries is mentioned, I think, 26 times. China and Russia are mentioned 90 times. Nothing is being done. So the commitment from me is solid. I'm an islander, I'm invested in the island, and it affects me as well. So 100% the ferries is top of the list.
And moving on to another big issue for islanders is dental care and the dental crisis. Health Watch Isle of Wight says it's causing distress to many, and it doesn't look like there are any signs of improvement coming. Mike Downs wants to know what you would do about that if you were to be elected.
So nationally, we're committed to 700,000 emergency dental appointments, training more dentists in the thousands, and incentivising them to come to dental deserts like the Isle of Wight. But locally, I've been working with 3 dentists, who one of whom in particular is desperate to do more NHS work, but the way the funding works, it's almost impossible. So, trying to get into the ICB to do that has been quite difficult, and that is because government has tasked the ICB with saving and that's the Independent Commissioning Board for the NHS, has tasked them with saving £136 million. Well, that doesn't help us as islanders. So we commit to all those extra dental appointments, recruit more dentists, and reform the dental contract, because at the moment it is quite punitive. Along with the amount of paperwork involved, is a lot of NHS dentists have just quit because it's too administrative a problem.
And storm overflows and sewage, again, another big issue and topic on the lips of many islanders. Thousands of times on the island there have been releases. Cows, obviously, you're very familiar with having living there. 5,000 hours, of course, in the last year. Michael would like to know how you would hold Southern Water to account and what you would do to solve the problem.
Yeah, well, I was a year-round swimmer, and I've stopped because of that issue. So we're committed to, at the minute you've got self-monitoring, that needs to stop, and it needs to be independent monitoring of all water outlets. And there needs to be a reduction of 90% of outflows by 2030, and we do that by giving the regulator more power, but also we stop bosses' bonuses if they're polluting, fines which are actually punitive so they can't actually afford to pollute, and criminal sentences for those that continue, because it's just not fair. We're a holiday island and we're surrounded by sewage.
And moving on to energy bills, we know they're about £400 higher than they were 3 years ago. The price cap is due to fall in July, but obviously that's despite that. What would you do to support islanders in the cost of living crisis?
So we have an issue in terms of generating our electricity on the island because of the lack of cable into the mainland. But in terms of nationally setting up GB Energy is a good start. But I think we need to get the skills for things like retrofitting insulation to really help. I think we need the skills for fitting of air source heat pumps and solar panels and the like. And we just need to upskill and make those things available to businesses as well as individuals.
And education, again, another big topic nationally, but of course on the island as well. What would you do to improve education outcomes and support schools to achieve their goals?
So education is massive. In this 45 seconds, I won't do it justice probably, but education is core to everything for me. That's how we save the island over the next 10 years. And that sounds extreme, but it is that important. So for me, everyone knows how to get to university, but for people that aren't necessarily academic, kids that aren't, we need decent vocational skills and training, vocational qualifications, technical apprenticeships up to degree level to offer good paid jobs when they leave. It's not just about university. And for me, developing things like an ecology centre, worldwide ecology centre on the island, and creative hubs like Platform One to do a lot more than they do for those that aren't necessarily going to go down the academic route, and give people access to GCSEs in sport and music and creative subjects rather than just the technical things. I think that's really good for development.
And moving on to the NHS, we know St Mary's Hospital, always struggles with availability of beds. Of course, you've got the mainland to factor in as well. And obviously the pressures that come with the winter months and summer months as well. How would you support and improve NHS hospital care on the island?
So commitment is to double the number of nurses training places, I think, to 40,000, double the number of doctors training places to 15,000. We have to fight to get those people. So there's lots of issues that we don't attract the right doctors and nurses, or they don't, sorry, not the right ones, sorry, in terms of attracting to the island. It's a great place to live, but we need to make it good for couples to come, because you can't just have somebody takes on a consultant role and there's no work for their partner. So there's a lot of work to do there. But in terms of directly NHS, increase the number of CT and MRI scanners, fight for our share of the doctors, but also with the changes in the NHS trusts, the merging of the Isle of Wight and Portsmouth, we need to fight to say we want resources coming this way, we're not just sending patients that way, and that's my concern.
I guess the Conservatives would argue that they've kind of laid the groundwork for the next government with obviously the St Mary's Hospital investment that's coming up. Would you agree with that?
No. You won't be surprised to hear me say so. I think you'll see the NHS is on its knees with 7.5 million people on the waiting list, the worst it's been in since the Conservatives took over, and probably in our lifetimes. So no, I think they're just doing the bare minimum they can, and an investment in healthcare is an investment in us, and they've done the bare minimum.
And that's the hospitals. What about locally GP surgeries? Yeah. Many are closing on the island, which we of course know. What would you do to help people get appointments, essentially?
So we need to find out what the reason is we're not getting the GPs we need. So GPs have always been self-employed within the NHS, and there's lots of small issues around how they're owning their properties work. So we need to find a way of attracting GPs to come to the island. I think their workloads can be excessive. I think they struggle to recruit staff. I think that's something that we need to be able to work on, because we need to be able to say to people, come to the island, not just because we need you, but it's a great place to be a GP in the same way we would for dentists.
And moving on to crime, we know that ASBs and stop and search, dispersal orders, Bobby's on the beat, crime levels, they're all key policing concerns here on the island. If you were to be elected and you were working alongside the Police and Crime Commissioner, how would you set and achieve goals in those areas?
I mean, to be fair, that is the Police and Crime Commissioner's job. So I think the danger is you interfere in too many things. But I think as an MP, your focus is what concerns people. It's about feeling safe in their environment. So that is the main cause. But also for high streets, it is about antisocial behaviour. So, a named police officer in every community, guaranteed police patrols in every town. But more than that, bringing back youth workers and youth clubs type arrangements, whereby people that or youngsters that are in danger of falling into boredom or whatever we might want to call it, I've got something else to do, and there's someone there to help them. Because I think we'd all agree mental health issues in the younger generation is quite huge, and I think that's part of community policing.
And again, I guess the critics, Conservatives, would come back at you at that and say, they're reopening the police stations, they've increased police numbers. Obviously, Cowes has got a new police station. How would you respond to that?
It does. I mean, we're still 10,000 PCSOs and police officers down on 2010. Labour Party will bring in 13,000 more on top of that. Police officers and PCSOs, and it's great to have the police station there, but it's open part-time because of resourcing. But also, they closed 2,500 youth centres, and we lost, I think, something like 7,500 youth workers. So again, you won't be surprised to hear me say, I don't agree.
These are one-word answers.
One-word answers, okay.
Yeah.
I'll struggle with this. Let's see what we can do.
Yes or no, would you support the nationalisation of trains?
Yes.
Would you push to rejoin the EU?
Not sure.
Island or party first?
Island.
National service, yes or no?
No.
Energy, nuclear or alternative?
alternative.
Should 16-year-olds be allowed to vote?
Yes.
The Isle of Wight, as we know, have never had a Labour MP. Realistically, is that going to change this time round?
Do you know what? It's closer than ever. Last time round, we had a mountain to climb, and we were behind by a considerable amount. This time round, both in feeling and what we can make sense of the polls, it's neck and neck. So it really is every vote counts. So I'm confident that people want to change, and I am absolutely committed to making that change happen. So yes, we can do it.
And Rishi Sunak claims that the last time Labour were in office, Britain was left on the brink of bankruptcy when you were last in power. How do you respond to that?
Again, 45 seconds. Well, we all know now that wasn't true. It was a banking crisis, but there's no point pretending. Even in that case, we're not as bad as we are now. We're in a far worse position than we've ever been, and that's been through the bad choice of Prime Minister Liz Truss and an absolutely chaotic budget that has left people paying at least 280 quid more on their mortgages. We've seen rents go up, we've seen energy prices go up, and we've not seen any sort of plan. So I'm quite happy to have a phone call with Rishi if you've got him. I know you've met him, and I'll discuss it with him if you like.
And I know that, of course, there was the infamous, when Liam Byrne was the Treasurer at the time, left the note on the desk for the incoming Tories, didn't he, saying, I'm afraid there's no money. Yeah.
And I believe there's some historical context to that. That's what every Chancellor tends to do. And I'm sure he regrets it. But again, the back to square one issue is, I think most people take back to square one compared to where we are now.
1 minute answers for this time. As MP, what would your first 3 top priorities be?
Ferries, education and housing.
Do you want to expand on any of those issues?
Yeah, so ferries, as we mentioned before, it's about finding the solution, and not just the sticking plaster, but the solution to reliable and cheaper fares. In terms of education, we need to find something that works for all islanders so that every child leaves with the opportunity, as I said before, around technical skills, technical apprenticeships, but also we need to get the SEND system working, because it's leaving a lot of families behind, and that's not good enough. That's something I've been working on before. And in terms of housing, is every islander deserves their own front door, whether it's rented, co-owned or owned. That is extremely important, because insecure housing must be the most terrible worry for a lot of people. 2,400 households on the housing waiting list, 200 families in emergency accommodation. That's not acceptable.
And obviously this time it's unique for the island in particular, because we've got 2 constituencies, the first time that's ever happened. You're obviously standing in the west.
Yeah.
If another party member, for example a Conservative, was elected in the east, how would you work alongside them?
Obviously I prefer 2 Team Red, but you're right. And I've proved in the council that I'm quite prepared to work cross-party on stuff that are essential. The issue we have is, while we've only got Conservative representation on the island, we're invisible. Because under a Conservative government with a large majority, they're not interested, and if it's a Labour government with a Conservative MP, well, they're going to struggle to knock on the door and get that door opened. So I'm quite prepared to work with whoever, because as far as I'm concerned, it's twice as much representation, regardless of who it is the other side. But that said, I prefer it was Emily.
Very, very finally, why should islanders trust you to be their MP?
So my in-laws live here, me and my wife live here, both my kids live here, and both my grandkids live here. I'm invested in the island for the next 18 years at least. I'm not doing this because I need another job. I'm doing this because I can't see the island keep falling off the edge of a cliff. We're surrounded by sewage. We've lost a lot of opportunities for our children. We've got a housing crisis, and nothing seems to be moving in terms of taking the island forward. The last 18 months I've been working on a plan for the island, which I'll happily share with anybody that asks, and that's based around the 5 Labour missions and how they work for the island, and that is all I'm concerned with. I only want to be the island representative of Westminster. I'm not interested in representing Westminster on the Isle of Wight.